as I was saying, Joy Taylor, every dog has its day. And since I'm a big dog, I've got 2 days.
Okay.
So now.
You just called yourself a dog?
Yeah, I'm a dog. Yeah, I'm a big dog, a big one.
Kevin Durant is 6'11", who can pull up from 40.
Okay.
This brother is on that level. I'm talking about offensively.
Do you think you're better than Jarrell Revis is right now?
I'm better than you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Lowdown Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Brown. As always, I have another special guest on the show. We'll be previewing the NFL Draft, which is actually taking place this Thursday, April 23rd. Today's April 20th. Happy 420 to everybody, and I'm not advocating for weed smoking or anything like that. I just want to say happy 420 because you got to have some positivity in here during this unprecedented time, right? So there's that. But just like Stephen A. Smith said, stay off the weed. I'll just put it that way. There you go. But this special guest of mine, I've had him on multiple times in the recent past. He's a Sports Illustrated writer, mainly covering the NFL. His name is Gary Gramling, and it's always a pleasure having him on. I just want to say, Gary, welcome back.
Good to be back, Mark. Yeah, I love the intro there, and obviously it's draft week, so lots of lots of fun, exciting holidays this week.
Oh, exactly, and especially, think about it. Today, it's obviously Monday. Yesterday was the premiere of episode 1 and 2 of The Last Dance featuring Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. And then today, they're going to re-air it, but we also have the NFL Draft to look forward to, which is going to be virtually because due to COVID-19 concerns, it's one wild ride so far. We're only like a little bit over 4 months into this year, and we're already seeing things change rapidly. It seems like if you stay away from social media or the internet or anything like that for a week straight, you missed out on during a regular year, a whole 3 months worth of news.
It is. In mid-February, like Super Bowl time, did you think we'd be here now and talking about virtual draft and not leaving our homes and whatever else? It's been a wild year. It's been a really weird draft season too.
Yeah, it really has. And then I'm just curious to see what happens. They have the top prospect. Like we know that right now, according to NFL.com, Chase Young and actually Joe Burrow is the 4th top prospect. I know he didn't compete or participate in the NFL Combine. He didn't really have to necessarily, but Chase Young is the top prospect for now. And I know there's a lot of mock drafts that are going down. That's been going down for the past few weeks, and that brings me to this point. So I know as of yesterday and the day before that, you came out with an article called the NFL Mock Draft for the People, the one that you wrote, and it says featuring 32 teams, 41 picks, and 11 draft day trades, and the only mock draft built just for you. I like that title. I like the sub headline right there. I like that, and it goes through. Like I read through it before I actually called you up, and it's pretty interesting. It's hard to see. That's another thing. It's pretty difficult to. Sometimes people are pretty accurate, but everybody has their own opinions of who's going where, and then we don't know who's going to get traded with who. Like it's just honestly, it sounds like a lot of fun to write that and actually brainstorm beforehand. So how did it feel to actually write this article, knowing that the draft's coming up in a few days?
Well, I like it, and every year when I do that mock draft, and when I say every year, this is the second year I've done this sort of silly version of the mock draft where I just like to find basically prospects and a way to put them on the teams I want to see them on. And you got to do that with trades sometimes. I really want Henry Ruggs, the Alabama speedster receiver. I want him to end up on the Eagles. I want him to play with Carson Wentz. But Eagles probably can't sit back at 21. Maybe they can, but they probably can't sit back at 21 and have Ruggs fall to them. So they got to come up and get him. So that's why I always do this mock draft where I just project as many trades as I can. And you know what? It won't work out that way, but everyone else's mock draft is wrong as well. So, but we do know Joe Burrow's going number 1. That is pretty much locked in at this point. And, you mentioned, Mark, he's, I think everyone accepts that Chase Young is sort of the highest graded sort of top overall pick. I think Joe Burrow is better than any of the quarterbacks to come out in obviously this draft or even the last 2 drafts, the Baker Mayfield draft and the Kyler draft. And I do like Baker and Kyler, but I think Burrow has, between his accuracy, enough arm strength, enough athleticism, but I love how good he is maneuvering in the pocket, always keeping his eyes up, never frazzled back there. I think that's what makes a great quarterback, and I think Burrow has that.
Yeah, he sure does. There's no argument to it. This guy he's had one of the most prolific offenses that we've ever seen in the past, like 20, 30 years, arguably the greatest of all time, right? So coming out of college. So when you see that, the type of legacy he left, like he's starting off at Ohio State and going to LSU, and then the rest is history, right? I could definitely see him. He's determined. This guy's resilient. Definitely has a strong arm, has really good accuracy, very great awareness. He's pretty much a coach on the field already, man. This guy's matured for his age. He's only 23, and it seems like he's already, made his mark in the league, and he still has yet to do that. But it seems like good things are, ahead for him. And to see, when you compare to other QBs out there, I mean, you also have Tua. That's also going to be, chances are he'll go first round. And I like how in your article that you had him, projected to go with the LA Chargers. I mean, that's a pretty good destination for him, because when you see that, knowing that Phillip Rivers is no longer there, I mean, who knows? I mean, he could potentially be the starter coming in.
I know, and look, the Chargers, this is kind of my one thing that I want to see happen is I really want the Chargers to sign Cam Newton. I think it's such a no-brainer for them. They went out and they didn't just sign like high-price free agents. They signed dudes who are like in their early 30s, guys, who are still really good, but at the ends of their careers, they kind of built a roster to win now. Chargers also have they have so many, Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, so many dudes who are coming up on free agency. Hunter Henry, the tight end, is another one. After the season, they are built to win this season. 2 years ago, they won a game at Kansas City, and they won a game at Baltimore, a playoff game at Baltimore against Lamar Jackson. They should really just go all in, make a run, bring in Cam. But if you're not going to bring in Cam, go get Tua. I like Tyrod Taylor. If my team was sort of in a transition, I think I'm fine with Tyrod Taylor as my starting quarterback. But if I have plans on winning the Super Bowl, you got to get someone better in there.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, that's the thing. This class also, it is pretty, I would say, unique in other ways, because there's been other drafts where they had just superbly, good receivers and quarterbacks. Like, for example, there was a really, really great running back class in 2017 and 2018. I mean, you had Saquon Barkley come out in 2018, and you also had Miles Sanders come out recently too. So it's like you go back to 2017, you had people like Christian McCaffrey, you had Leonard Fournette. I mean, the list goes on, right? So this year, I feel like you said, Joe Burrow already separated himself, but you also have Tua, and then there's other, Justin Herbert and other guys in there that can also make their mark when they're in the league. But that's another thing. I don't like to underestimate a lot of these prospects, because usually, when history likes to repeat itself, especially in the NFL. When you see a lot of underdogs come in, they definitely take care of business when they're in the league. And there's times where you have top prospects that become, a bust. And I think a prime example will be, it's safe to say now, Laquan Treadwell. He hasn't really produced that much ever since he's been drafted back in 2016. So it's like he was a first rounder, expected to be doing great things with Minnesota, but now he's with the Falcons. So we'll see. He could be potentially one of the greatest backup receivers, as you would say, this year coming up. But what are your thoughts on Isaiah Simmons? Because this guy is an athlete. He ran a 4.340 during the combine. He's 6'3", 6'4", definitely good size for a linebacker. Where do you expect him? How well do you think he'll be able to perform once he's in the league?
Yeah, look, it just kind of feels like he's built for the modern game, right? Everyone's got these sort of, athletic tight ends who are more like supersized wide receivers are using. If you're in the AFC, you're going to have to deal with Travis Kelce at some point. If you're in the NFC, you got Zach Ertz and George Kittle. So who's going to cover these guys? And Simmons can do it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Simmons is also you're not going to line him up against a Tyreek Hill or something. He's not that kind of defensive player, but he can hold his own against some of these, you see across the league, big slot receivers. Again, I don't think he's going to shut down DeAndre Hopkins, but if you're in zone coverage and he ends up on Hopkins, it's not a disaster. You're probably going to go after him, but he can make a play there. I remember last year in the playoffs, Anthony Barr was sort of bothering Michael Thomas on some of these routes out of the slot. I think that's what Isaiah Simmons brings. And look, you can move around. You can certainly blitz him. He's real good in coverage. You could probably back him up and play some safety. I know there's some really good evaluators out there who think he's better at safety than linebacker, but it's almost like it doesn't matter. It's like Derwin James out for the Chargers. He can do so many things, and that's really what you need as a defense these days.
Exactly. And, that was a good point. Tyreek Hill, obviously He's separated himself from everybody. I mean, he's the fastest guy in the NFL, hands down. Like, nobody can stick with this guy. You can have double coverage on this guy, still be able to get open somehow whenever he runs his routes. He has crisp routes. He's too explosive. And, I mean, the fact that, especially on those deep balls, obviously Patrick Mahomes, he's highly, well, I would say he's, like, excellently reliable when it comes to making those, deep balls here and there. I mean, his accuracy is so great. It's like he's been in the NFL for 10 years, and he hasn't. This is only he's entering his, fourth season now coming up. So when you look at that, Tyreek Hill, definitely a completely different conversation. But I think Isaiah Simmons, like you said, I think this guy can stick with a lot of running backs. I feel like he can be a problem. He could potentially be a problem for Saquon Barkley. But I say that now, it could be a terrible take. The fact that I'm saying this now, that can be recorded and you can put that on Freezing Cold Takes if you like. But I feel like he has the capability to slow somebody down like Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, running backs like top tier running backs like that. Because like the fact that he has speed and he has athleticism, he'll be able to. I feel like he'll be a huge problem in the box. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, Christian McCaffrey is a great example. Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield and running a route, you don't really want a traditional linebacker trying to cover him. But if you have Isaiah Simmons, you feel pretty good about that matchup. I don't know if you feel great about anyone matching up with McCaffrey, but you feel pretty good about that matchup. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I can't wait to see that. I mean, I feel like this guy has a bright future ahead of him. I feel like a lot of these guys have a bright future ahead of them. And speaking of that, I like how you have CeeDee Lamb projected to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, that's pretty cool how you put that up there because there's been a lot of rumors I've seen online that the Eagles could potentially acquire this guy because they said they need more receivers. They need more. I feel like they need receivers. The Broncos definitely need a receiver because I was actually surprised they chose to pick up Melvin Gordon because I feel like Denver desperately needs a receiver. I mean, obviously you have Cortland Sutton, who's definitely emerging into the league, definitely improving each season. He's basically their top go-to receiver, knowing that Emmanuel Sanders already left a long time ago. He went to San Francisco. Now he's with the Saints, so he's long gone. So it's like I feel like they need one more great receiver. I mean, the Raiders do too, so they'll be. I'm pretty sure it'll be like a toss-up between maybe Las Vegas and Philadelphia. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, not only those teams need receivers, but stylistically they need certain kinds of receivers. Like when I look at Denver, and in my mock draft I gave him Jerry Jeudy, the Alabama receiver. I just think Jeudy stylistically is really a nice complement to Cortland Sutton. Jeudy is a guy who's he's gonna create separation. He's gonna run away from people. Sutton's more of sort of a contested catch above the rim type of guy. So now you got two different types of receivers there. Eagles, I think the Eagles really need a speed guy, and that's why I think it's Ruggs, or if it's not Ruggs, they might as well just wait until round 2 and get someone like KJ Hamler out of Penn State, who's just a pure burner. They just need that dude. They thought they had it in Deshaun Jackson, then Deshaun got hurt, but they need that dude to take a top off a defense, and that's what Henry Ruggs does. I don't know if that's quite what Lamb does. Lamb's really good. The reason I gave him to the Raiders, and I do think, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. Like I said, I want two receivers who are sort of different stylistically. Lamb is stylistically pretty similar to Tyrell Williams there in Oakland. Excuse me, I'm going to do that all year in Las Vegas. But Derek Carr does not throw the ball downfield, and I know people keep on citing stats like, well, he's accurate when he throws downfield, and that's great, but he doesn't do it very often. He doesn't try those throws very often. So it's almost like if you put Henry Ruggs, the fastest guy in the draft, on the Raiders, are you just kind of wasting that skill set at this point if Derek Carr's your quarterback? Frankly, if they took Ruggs, I would kind of raise my eyebrows and wonder if they have plans for getting a new quarterback in their next season. But as far as Lamb goes, I think he fits really well with Derek Carr, even though he is kind of a little bit redundant to what they already have in Tyrell Williams there, and that's why I like that fit there.
Yeah, that's actually a good take because now looking at going down the list, I see that you have it's also listed as a projected trade up with the Broncos with Jerry Jeudy. I mean, I feel like. See, that's another thing. I feel like he could be the next, he could be like a top 2 receiver in Denver because obviously Cortland Sutton is their number 1 guy. You pick if they were to draft Jerry Jeudy, I feel like that would be a good pickup, especially knowing they have a young quarterback now with Drew Lock. So, I feel like Denver is a young team. It's like they're rebuilding in a way because you've seen all these young players take over. I mean, you have great running backs now. You're stacked with the Tasmanian Devil and, Philip Lindsay, obviously, and Melvin Gordon now. And they already see before they even acquired Melvin Gordon. They already had depth at the running back position. They still have Royce Freeman on the list. They have Devontae Booker and those guys. So they had a lot of depth. And now knowing they have Melvin Gordon, that's going to be a 1-2 punch right there. And Drew Lock is a decent quarterback. I feel like he's beyond decent. He definitely put up some great numbers during his limited time he had in the league this past year. And I feel like he's a great replacement for Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco's no longer there. He got released. So I feel like he's going to be a great replacement. And to see a young receiver like Jerry Jeudy potentially get picked up by Denver, I feel like that'll be a good matchup for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love Jerry Jeudy. I think Judy's the best receiver in this draft. I absolutely love the way he he just blows people away on some of these routes. And I'd take him, and you said it. Denver needs receivers, and if you had all of a sudden Jerry Jeudy on one side and Courtland Sutton on the other, you got something cooking there.
Oh, exactly. There's no doubt about that. No doubt at all. And then knowing that there's a young roster, like especially for offensively, that can be a huge problem. But obviously, prayers up for Von Miller. Hope he recovers with the coronavirus right now. I know that's been trending lately. It's been a problem just about in every league now. Every sports league, it seems like somebody's at least one person has tested positive for it. But that could be a completely different conversation. But I noticed another thing is what do you see in these running backs? Because this running back class doesn't look as talented as it's been in the recent past. I mean, DeAndre Swift might be the top back out of this group, but I mean, there's plenty more room for them to grow, I would say. But I think DeAndre Swift might be the best guy when it comes, or him or Jonathan Jones coming out of Wisconsin too.
I really like Swift, and I think we're going to see this year. I don't know if Swift goes in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but you're just seeing running backs devalued across the league right now. Christian McCaffrey notwithstanding, he just got that big deal. I think Swift is really good. He's not quite McCaffrey in the passing game, but he's close. He's really, really good. And I think the LSU guy, the two guys I love among the running back class, DeAndre Swift and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. And look, I've heard scouts. And I know this sounds like blasphemy, but this is a guy you and your family are familiar with, Mark. I heard some Barry Sanders comps for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And he's, no one's saying he's that good, but just, that style, that sort of stop-start, dead leg and kind of running style. I mean, that's kind of what he brings. It's really fun to watch, and he is he's excellent in the passing game as well. He's a definite weapon too. So I really like those guys. I like Jonathan Taylor too. I do think Taylor is not quite what those guys are in the passing game. I know they tried to get him more involved last year. He had a lot of drops though, and that worries you. He's also got some ball security problems there, which you're not crazy about. But I think Swift and Edwards-Helaire, those are two sort of modern backs, and if someone jumped on them in round one, I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah, exactly. I meant to say Taylor. I'm just now realizing I said Jones. I don't know where I got that from. I meant to say Taylor. But
I was going to say Jonathan Jones is a friend of mine over at CBS now. He's one of my favorite people in media. So
there you go. So I got a little mix up.
I didn't even bat an eye.
There you go. But yeah, you're actually not the only person that's been talking about that LSU running back and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because the only difference though when they compare him to Sanders, the difference is I see where they're coming from. It's the height. He's 5'7". Barry Sanders is what, like 5'7 and 3/4, 5'8", something like that. And weight-wise, they're about the same. But the only difference I saw, he is pretty shifty, but the difference is speed-wise. Barry Sanders ran a low 4.4. It was like a 4.41. And when it comes to, I don't know how much he bench. That doesn't really matter. But, speed-wise, he's just faster. And and then I would say Barry Sanders is more. I mean, when it comes to agility, I feel like Barry Sanders' agility is untouchable. Overall,
yeah.
And when you look at all the running backs, I feel like the closest running back to that agility would probably be Marshall Faulk, and Saquon Barkley can be arguably one of those guys too. I mean, the way that he runs, I feel like his agility is in that level. So it's but I'm not trying to downgrade Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I feel like this guy can definitely turn, like you said. I feel like he's a sleeper, even though he's going to be. Chances are he might go what? You think he'll go deep first down, or maybe early in the second round?
I wouldn't be shocked if someone took him in the first round. I think more likely he's in the second round. I think mid-second round is probably where he ends up coming off the board. Yeah,
I feel like he can do some damage as a rookie, because I mean a great example is look at Miles Sanders with Philadelphia. I didn't really expect him. A lot of people didn't really expect him to produce the numbers that he did this past season. So I feel like Clyde can also be a guy that can definitely turn many heads coming in during his rookie season. Say if he gets a lot of playing time.
Yep, absolutely.
And what are your thoughts on some of these other big-time prospects? What do you see with the defensive backs or tight ends?
The tight end class it's tough. I think there are a lot of really interesting guys. I don't know if any of them go in round one, though. Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame is probably more of a traditional, what we probably think of as a tight end, where he can line up on the line. If I keep on linking him to the Patriots just because I think they need a guy who can do a lot of things. He's not Gronk. He's not that kind of athlete, but he is a good athlete, and he can do a lot of the things that Gronk did. He can sort of do a Gronk impression, even though he's not going to be as good. The rest of the guys in this tight end class, I really like Harrison Bryant. I really like Hunter Bryant. No relation. Harrison Bryant's out of Florida Atlantic. Hunter Bryant out of Washington. But those are sort of, those are the supersized receivers type of guys. I don't think any of those guys are sort of your do-it-all tight ends that teams kind of want more than anything at this point. Adam Troutman out of Dayton, a converted basketball player, is another guy who sort of falls under, under that sort of heading there. Thaddeus Moss, Randy Moss's kid's in this draft too. I really like him as a blocker, and I do like him as a receiver, but he's not a dynamic receiver. So, I don't know if I don't know about this tight end class. I think some good ones emerge. I mean, we saw George Kittle was a 5th-round pick. Travis Kelce, I think, was a 3rd-round pick. So we see these guys emerge once they get into the league. But I don't know if there's anyone making anyone really excited in this tight end class. Everyone really likes the offensive tackles. There's 4 of them that are going to go in the top half of the 1st round. Jedrick Wills, the Alabama guy, is probably my favorite. But I like all those guys. And I think they all have that sort of flexibility to do right tackle or left tackle. But, we didn't really touch on him, Mark. I think the story of round 1, at least, is look, everyone watches round 1, so it'll be the story of the draft. But it's going to be Tua and where Tua ends up going. And I could see him, someone, trading up with the Lions and getting him at 3. I could see him falling, though. I could see him getting past the Dolphins. Let's say the Dolphins, and I do think the Dolphins might like Justin Herbert better. If he gets past the Dolphins and the Chargers decide, okay, we're going to go sign Cam and we're going to take an offensive lineman here, then it really becomes just sort of who's going to trade up and get Tua somewhere in the top half of the 1st round. And the fact that with the COVID-19. No one really got a chance to have their doctors examine him one-on-one. People were worried about the hip. People were worried about the ankles from past seasons. I don't know. I don't know where he falls to if he doesn't go with that 5th or 6th pick.
Yeah, that's another thing. I feel like he's going to be the story right there. Like, he's probably going to be one of the top stories. Like you said, everybody knows where Joe Burrow's going. I mean, chances are, I'm 90% sure he's going to the Bengals because the Bengals had the worst record last season. So, yeah, there's no doubt that he might be going, or most likely he'll be going there. So, no doubt at all. But, yeah, the Tua, that is a story. Because I saw on Twitter that he was working out. He was getting a few reps in, just throwing the ball, just moving the ball, especially during, this pandemic. I mean, obviously he was practicing social distancing. There was not that many people there. It was maybe a handful of people there. Just he had somebody recording him, and he had a couple of receivers there. It wasn't that many people. And I actually want him to do well. I mean, this guy, he's about the same size as Russell Wilson in a way. He's they have him listed at 6 foot, but they always had a height to most players. So he could be 5'11", some around that range, but that's not really tall for a quarterback. I mean, there's only a few quarterbacks he can name. That I can name from the top of my head that were on that level. I mean, obviously Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray shorter than Tua. Then you also had Michael Vick. About roughly 20 years ago, he was listed at 6 foot. And yeah, look how great. I mean, I'm not comparing Tua to Michael Vick. Michael Vick's a much greater athlete in my opinion than Tua is, but I'm not trying to undermine Tua because Tua has potential. I feel like his athleticism definitely fits with today's new version of dual threat quarterbacks, I would say.
He's a good athlete. I don't think he's quite. I mean, look, no one's in Michael Vick's class. Maybe Lamar Jackson, but as far as those short guys go, I don't think he's there with Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray either. I think if it works for Tua in the NFL, and I think it will, I think it'll be at least a good NFL starting quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be a superstar, but if he is, it's going to be because he ends up being Drew Brees or Baker Mayfield. I know Baker's not coming off a great year, but he looked good as a rookie, and I think he still has a good future. But I think stylistically, he has to end up playing like those guys as opposed to someone like Russell. And I mean, Russell Wilson is the best sort of out-of-structure improvisational quarterback maybe in the history of the NFL. And then Kyler is obviously just much more athletic than I think Kyler is more athletic than Russell as well. But Tua, it's interesting. I would have been really curious to see who would have gone number one if Tua was 100% healthy. I have a feeling it would have been Burrow anyway. But I think Tua, if you took away the injury issues, I think he'd still be top 5.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. I mean, it's just we just have to wait and see. But I feel like Tua also has potential to turn heads in the league. I wish what's best for him because obviously he missed due to injury. Remember he had hip surgery not too long ago, like you just mentioned. So he's definitely a bounce back guy. He seems very resilient. Definitely has his mind sharp. So I feel like he can definitely do what he can to definitely represent himself whenever he's in the draft, not only the draft, but also into the upcoming season, which I really hope happens. I mean, there's been rumors saying that the NFL probably won't even say that. That's so far away from now. It's only April. I feel like we just had to take it a day at a time. So yeah.
It's all we can do at this point.
Yeah, because I'm getting tired of these predictions of what's going to happen. I mean, meteorologists predict the weather all the time, and most of the time they get it wrong. Most of the time, but not all the time. They get it wrong by a tad bit. There's times where they're mostly right, but it's hard to predict the future. We just got to hope for the best. And I just realized I forgot to bring up another top tier prospect, and that from the defensive back section. That's Jeff Okudah. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly because I've seen him play for Ohio State, but for some reason I always had a hard time pronouncing his name. But I feel like he's one of the top prospects in the first round as well.
Yeah, look, that cornerback class is good, and it's definitely Okudah and C.J. Henderson, the Florida guy, at the top of it, and then it's sort of everyone else. And I think a lot of them are going to go round 1, round 2 that are pretty even at this point. To me, I think Okudah is sort of a no doubt number 1 cornerback in this class. I really think there's a lot of similarities to Jalen Ramsey. I think he's an absolute shutdown number 1 corner. I think Henderson can get there as well. He's a little less consistent than Okudah was, but gosh, I mean, you look at what the Patriots built defensively, where they don't have any great pass rushers, yet they have this historically great defense. It's because they were so good in the secondary, and Stephon Gilmore, obviously very deserving Defensive Player of the Year a year ago. If you can get a guy like that, and I'm not saying Okudah is going to be Stephon Gilmore, but getting that number 1 corner, it's so big for a defense, and I think you're going to see more teams in coming years trying to build up that secondary as opposed to kind of building up the pass rush. Look, 49ers have a great one, but you can't always get your hands on Nick Bosa. You have to be drafting the top of the draft to get a guy like that. Chase Young obviously is a guy like that, but I think Okudah is going to Detroit, and that's we're going to see real soon how good he is because Lions have no pass rush. I mean, you saw with Darius Slay last year. I mean, Darius Slay had to cover, it seemed, for 30 seconds on every play. Okudah is going to be in that kind of a bind early on. He's probably going to be asked to cover number 1 receivers too. So we'll see how it goes for him. But he's real good. C.J. Henderson's also real good. I would definitely take Okudah out of the 2 of them, though.
Yeah, same here. I think Okudah is he has the best film in my opinion, especially the performance he had during his career at Ohio State, and then his size too. I mean, I feel like he can do a great job, especially in press coverage. He does a good job in cover 1. Now cover 2, also another thing. He's definitely, I would consider him a ball hawk. Definitely physical for his size. He's 6'1", 205. So that's big for a cornerback, because cornerbacks on average are 5'10", 5'11". So see him well over that. I mean, he can definitely keep up with receivers because there's cornerbacks that are much shorter than that still make a name for themselves in the league. So I feel like Jeff Okudah is definitely a top-tier prospect. He's also a native Texan, came from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that's another guy.
There you go.
Yep, and he runs a 4.4. So that's another thing. Cornerbacks definitely need speed nowadays because some of these receivers are so freaking fast that, especially in cover 1, if you don't run below a 4.5 and you're trying to stick with somebody in cover 1, especially those deep routes, because slants, they can probably have quick feet enough to react. But if it's a longer route, a deep route, good luck to you. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Good luck to you. You can easily get smoked in that case. But do you have any last-minute thoughts you'd like to provide about this draft preview coming up?
No, look, we're all thankful it's happening, and I think the NFL has some technological challenges they have to figure out before this whole thing goes down. But it's really going to be, I think, more than ever. And I can't remember who made this point, but when you have a regular draft season where all these scouts are sort of showing up the same pro days and sort of comparing notes and stuff like that, you end up with a very groupthink kind of thing where everyone sort of has, not the same consensus, but everyone sort of agrees more or less on the draft board. I think this year it's going to be a little bit wilder. I think you're going to see some surprises here. I think you're going to see some good players going day 2, especially the receivers. It's going to be fun. And, I mean, look, we're not going anywhere, so might as well just sit down and tune in for a couple days here and enjoy it as it all unfolds.
Exactly. That's very well said. I mean, that's all we can think of right now. And then luckily, like I mentioned earlier, like the Last Dance is going on too, and then the draft. So hopefully that distracts our minds right now from what's going on. I mean, it's like I just found out. I just got an email saying that here in San Angelo, so this is the 4th day in a row that there's no new positive cases. So that's a good sign. That's never gone that long. But
yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to get my hopes up because it could change. Because like testing, there's a low testing demand right now, and they've increased. I found out they increased the amount of customers into grocery stores. Instead of going from 100 at a time, they now increase it to 250 at a time. So we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I mean, that's good news, but I mean, it sounds like they're easing restrictions out here, but we'll see. That's another thing. But it sounds positive, though. I'll take it.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll take anything that sounds positive at this point.
Exactly. But once again, Gary, it was a pleasure having you on, man. It's a lot of fun talking to you, and I was glad this is the 3rd time, so 3 times a charm. How about that?
Absolutely.